All right, everybody. We are live with another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I'm stoked today to have my buddy from the North, Jake Karls from MidDay Squares on the podcast. Jake, thanks for coming on, man.
Dude, I'm fired up about this. When we chatted on LinkedIn, I think it was a week ago or a little longer than that. And I was just jacked up because honestly, I love meeting people. I love meeting people that are making things happen, just doing and executing things. And I don't know, I'm just jacked up to have our conversation that we're gonna have today. And I'm grateful that you reached out.
Love it, man. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's funny. I told you this before we started recording. I saw you guys do your own podcast. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I saw the brand, and obviously I'm in the protein bar category. So I'm like, these guys are just doing something really cool. You have great vibes. I love the good vibes stuff. I totally resonate with that. So I appreciate it. Would you mind giving everyone just a little background on what MidDay Squares is and then what your role is?
Yeah, dude, 100%. First of all, my name's Jake Karls. I'm one of the co-founders of MidDay Squares. We're a family business. It's me, my sister, and my brother-in-law. They're married. So that's kind of wacky. But we call it the tripod. But we started in 2018, August 2018, in Montreal, Canada. So we are in the north, in the cold weather. Right now it's -25, I think.
Oh boy. Love it.
And yeah, the goal was we wanted to solve the afternoon snacking problem for chocolate. We really went after, becoming a chocolate company, kind of like if you look at what, a modern day Hershey would look like if they started in 2018, that's what we wanted to build towards. So We are a manufacturer and we're also a brand. So our first product line was the first functional chocolate bar. Basically, imagine you take a chocolate bar, so real chocolate, so it's 90% dark. And then you take a protein bar, you have a baby with the two, but you kind of get rid of the chalky taste, the artificial stuff that's in that, and you stay on the chocolate side. So, a lot of bars in the space were enrobing chocolate or flavored chocolate. We wanted to be an indulgent that was that 2 p.m., snack that got you to your dinner time. And everyone was in the chocolate space was trying to do just a chocolate bar. So a standard, some great brands like Hue, Lily's, Ultra Eco, all these brands were just great tasting products, but there was no function. There was nothing to it more than, oh, I'm going to have this for the sake of the taste, of the indulgent aspect. But then there was all these protein bars that were, doing all kinds of functions that were great, but they weren't on the real chocolate side. So we said, let's just make a plant-based, real food ingredient chocolate bar that was kind of, an indulgent, but also functional. And so that's MidDay Squares in the shortest format. And we tried to co-pack our product, man, and we couldn't do it. No co-packer. I think we went to 26 across North America.
Oh, wow, really?
And they wanted to change the product, dude. They were like, we can only do this if we reverse, if we put, palm kernel oil instead of cocoa butter. If we get this machinery, you got to buy it for us. And we're just like, excuse my language, we're just like, fuck that. And we decided to go, fine. Okay, guys. Okay, good. And dude, we're going to have to go build out a factory, a fully automated plant. It's going to take time. It's going to take risk. It's going to be expensive. But if we believe in this and if we're going guns blazing, then we're going to do it. So my sister went and she built out this plant that I'm actually in right now that could do 90,000 bars a day. And everything was customized. It's 125 feet of machinery. And we could do all kinds of chocolate snacks. And dude, that's more or less the gist of what the product is.
So you guys actually, wow. See, I was going to say that's a huge differentiator just in itself. So you guys actually created a facility and you're manufacturing it in-house.
Everything's in-house from our front, our office to our production. And it's really cool. And they're micro plants. So we could build these for about $2.8 to $3 million each, and they could support up to 70 million in revenue. So we could, I could go build one in Chicago where you are at, just to have it more central for the US. Sure. And it's not like Kraft or where, they build 1 million square foot plants that do everything. We don't want to have that. We want to be different plants set up in different areas, just because of the convenience and how lean manufacturing works, and not, because our product's fresh. It doesn't just it lasts 90 to 100 days. So everything's got to be lean, Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of power because, I mean, the world I come from, I mean, we're planning production months and months and months out, and then you're locked in. And if anything changes on a dime, you're stuck with that inventory, or you need more inventory and you can't get it quick enough. So that's powerful to have it in house. You can walk in the back and tell them to turn it on.
Yeah, no, that, you know, and every day I go take a walk in the plant and I just look at it kind of like Willy Wonka's like chocolate factory.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's what, yeah, dude, it's what fires me up every day to keep going, because at the end of the day, that part of the plant, there's problems there. You know, we don't have those necessarily those production problems, but we have machine breaks. We
Sure.
have, you know, something's off in the plant, this, that, you know, it's a lot of extra stress, but without that, the story wouldn't be what we have today. And I think what also gives us a little bit of a competitive edge with these, you know, with time, if someone wanted to go make the exact same product, just to automate it would take them a lot of time to figure out, because again, these are custom machines that were built. No factory had these machines built. They're different ones that were customized to build this line. And it's a
Wow.
very, yeah, because bars are, believe people don't realize that bars, the dough in bars are really complex sometimes.
Yeah.
The process is complex. And we don't, you know, we don't heat, we don't do all that stuff. Like our product's raw and it's really hard to actually make it. And so we have like a year or two competitive advantage on the manufacturing side. But another asset that we have that we didn't discuss is storytelling. We actually built our team to be a storytelling machine. So we show everything in this company, man. I mean, like it's radically transparent. If you go on our Instagram, Facebook, you go on our podcast, you go on LinkedIn, you'll see that we literally show the entire journey of how we're building MidDay Squares, with the good, the bad, the ugly, the failures, successes. And that allows our consumers to come on the ride with us, the roller coaster with us, and not just watch us, right?
Right.
And yeah, dude, it gets hard, but our marketing team is no marketing. It's all just content creators in-house. They're all just videographers, editors, and producers. And it was a different approach, you know?
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like it. I mean, it sounds like from the ground up, it's been very different. What was like, I mean, what must that process have looked like to like make the decision? Because I think the first thing that comes to probably most people's minds, including mine, is like that had to cost so much money. So like when you guys were trying to figure out the co-packing thing, it sounds like, I mean, that was just a pain in the ass anyway, because no one could really do it the way you wanted it. Could you maybe walk us through just like how you guys thought through that and ended up coming up with the idea of like, let's just bring this in house and make our own?
Yeah. So as soon as like, you know, my sister and my brother-in-law, they would go to the tour of the plants and try to figure out the manufacturing, and, you know, they would get the answers every single time. We could do this product if we change it up, we use different ingredients, we do this, that. And they would just keep hearing that from all the big co-packers you know, in North America. And then there was one that told them specifically, listen, we just can't do it. Go build it out yourselves. And for us, we were like, at that point, we're like, okay, what's this going to cost?
Yeah.
And we originally came up with the number. My sister originally came up with the number that was $1.4 million. So we were like, okay, well, we got to go fundraise that. We got to go find that money. You know, we've proven the concept already by making the bars by hand. We were able to kind of like, you know, already see that sales were going up. We were able to actually see that there's a product market fit, right? Because that's the most important at the beginning.
Sure.
And then, so my brother-in-law went to go raise some money, and, you know, he loves finance. You know, you love him, to be honest, because he loves finance and stuff like that. And, you know, when he was raising mid to right at the end of the raise, we had the money set with this company called this fund called Boulder Food Group. They're incredible. They believed in us even before seeing this plant live. They saw paperwork of it.
Sure.
Yeah. And right before the raise was about to close, my sister went to Nick and said, we're going to have to do another 1.5 million on top of that, because it ain't going to work otherwise. We're not going to be able to build this plant for 1.4 million. It's going to cost about 2.8 to $3 million. So he was like, holy shit, we're just about to close the raise at that point. And he now has to go tell them we need this much more. And long story short, you know, we actually went to the Canadian government. The Canadian government has a lot of incentives and programs and ways to encourage manufacturing, and especially where we are in Quebec, which is like a, you know, as a province, kind of like how your state of, you know, basically it's like your Illinois where you are.
Right.
And we basically went to the government. They have these programs that basically fund machinery for manufacturing specifically. And they're very easygoing, and they want you to grow. They want you to build here in Quebec so you could hire, you could, you know, build, you know,
it helps the
build
economy in Quebec, right?
Exactly. So they ended up lending us about $2.8 million to go build it out, actually. And yeah, that was huge, because, and lending, we're talking about like, you know, great rates, and, you know, just, you know, a great terms. It's just great terms to help entrepreneurship happen.
Oh, that's really cool.
And yeah, shout out to Investment Quebec, because if you're in Quebec, if you're listening to this, go out and reach out to them. They're super awesome and super helpful. And that helped us build out that aspect to go build out the plant. But at that time, we never had, it wasn't set in stone on what exactly was going to happen. My sister had to go, you can't go test drive machines like if you're going to buy a Ferrari at a, you can't do it. You have to, it's all theoretical, right?
Right.
Because they're custom. So they're not going to go build the machine and say, oh no, you have to put your down payments down for that stuff. And I just remember her saying to, Nick and I, there's like a 92% chance this works. You still got that 8% chance that this could collapse. This just cannot work.
Yeah.
So that was a worry, man. That was scary but thank God, now we're in 2021 and our plant is fully, it's operational and the machines do work.
Yeah, right.
But again, it's scary. It's scary.
No,
man.
I understand that. I mean, we've in my time at RX, we've tried to launch, lots of different innovation. And one of the ones, I mean, I just remember it was just like every time we had a co-packer, but it was just every time we'd go, I mean, there was just something new that it just wouldn't work. And it's frustrating, but to know you have to like put money up front, I mean, that's pretty tough. So for you guys, then I guess, one of my questions I normally ask is around, bootstrapping versus fundraising. Did you guys, when you started MidDay Squares, did you guys expect to at someday probably have to fundraise, or were you hoping to bootstrap? And then when you decided to bring manufacturing in-house, was it kind of like, okay, no brainer, we need to fundraise type of thing?
Yeah. So basically the three of us came from different backgrounds. We've all been entrepreneurs for quite a while now. We've all tried ventures and failed, lost money. And like on my last venture, I lost about $45,000. My sister lost, I think hundreds of thousands on her fashion business.
Okay.
And my brother-in-law has failed on 4 businesses and he had one successful one that hit in the software space. So he sold that out. He sold out of that business and had, money to put into this business. But for me, I put everything in my personal bank account that I had at the time in 2018, and I basically had to move back home to my parents' house. Thank God I was able to.
Yeah.
But
right.
we said, we're going to put in this kind of money to start, and we know we're going to have to fundraise at some point, one way or another. We didn't know how soon we'd have to do that. We actually had to do it really quickly.
Okay.
But our goal was $250,000 of revenue in our first year. That was the goal to hit. The North Star was let's hit that. We ended up hitting 712,000, I think, in the first year.
In the first year?
And
that's incredible.
Dude, it was whack. And that's when we realized like, okay, let's fundraise. And the problem with fundraising, we didn't realize how long due diligence can take and stuff like that. So our first one took 6.5 months of due diligence, which is crazy. Yeah. So when we got our term sheets in that end of first year, almost in July, we only closed the round. I think it was like, it was in like December. So think about that time, or December, November time.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that. So that actually hurts, because if things fall apart, and I always tell people, until the money's in your account, you could sign all the paperwork you want. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Because both raises that we've done, aside from the government was fine. Aside, we've had people pull back, some money from it and had to find someone else to fill it, which is, it sucks. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that it's not done till it's literally in the account. And so any advice to people with fundraising? And I know in our CPG space, especially in the food and beverage world, people are fundraising like crazy right now. It's like every day you hear of a new one every day.
Oh yeah. It's been constant. Yeah. I mean, do you have that world? And like, we've had founders on here that we've talked about it a little bit. Do you have any advice for anyone who like, I mean, it's funny when I ask, because like, there's not like a cookie cutter way to go even find the right people to ask, but like, do you have any learnings from that whole process that you could share with people on just like, do's and don'ts maybe?
Yeah, dude. So it's an emotional roller coaster. That's for sure. So be prepared to go ups and downs. Like I said, like we had everything smooth, and then suddenly, one way or another, and our books were clean and everything was radically transparent. It's just, sometimes things just change. Mindset changes. Risk becomes a different scenario in someone else's eyes, and they could pull back. People could pull back till the last minute, and just be prepared for something like that. And, don't just build out to rely on one egg. They say, don't put your baskets in just one egg. And, don't put your egg in one basket. Yeah. I think that other entrepreneurs got to realize that, in our story, it happened twice, and we were prepared the second time really fast, like snap of a finger, to solve that problem. And, again, it could happen again in maybe a third raise that we do, or a fourth, whatever it is. And I think that, you just got to be prepared for that. Also, when choosing who you want to, partner with you, choose it carefully. Be wise. Like, we wanted to be with people that we can go sleep on their couch and feel comfortable doing that when we go visit,
Yeah.
and like actually just jam and be able to shoot the shit and have a good time with, not so much on the, business relationship, but like have a personal relationship with them. With all our investors, we're very, very close with,
Okay.
and it creates a very good dynamic in our board meetings, and in just like in general, when we have questions or they have questions, it creates that personalization where it's not so much like what's happening. It's more like, okay, what's going on? Are we going away for a vacation soon? Are we going to hang? Are we going to this and that? And for us, because we're a manufacturer, we chose people that actually came to come fly in and see our plant and actually made that effort.
Oh,
Again,
yeah.
that shows dedication. And, Boulder Food Group decided to fly in and come see it. And this time we had a small kitchen. It wasn't even our plant. And they came to feel it. And that just shows a lot of respect that they care. And it's not just about a number game. And it's not just about, it's not just a game about paperwork. It's actually,
Right.
there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
And then,
And they probably want to
and
get
then
to know you guys.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. So you got to get in bed with these people. Like for us, like you're in bed with these people. It's not just a finance relationship. It's a journey. It's a roller coaster. And, it's an emotional one. Like things are going to go wrong. Every company, shit happens. And I don't care. It's not always all flowers and sunshine. There's a lot of rain that comes. Even during this pandemic, for example, think about this pandemic. Shit went south. Our first month, we crashed 70% in sales. Like that's a hard thing to explain.
Yeah.
But we figured it out. And it's like when you have those investors that feel like family, you feel comfortable being very transparent and very real with them, and the same thing back. So communication is very important. Don't hide things and just be open-minded to the conversations. And, again, we follow our gut on everything. Everything we do is our gut feeling, and our investors respect that. And that's what they invested in. They invested in us building a business. So we always remind them that when we make not rash decisions, but we're not going to go buy a helicopter. But if we want to go invest, $1 million in our media team, there's a reason why we're doing it and what we believe in.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I think that's a great piece of advice, because I would think when things got tough, especially in COVID, you'd want to have the kind of people you could text, pick up the phone and be like, hey, like I'm struggling with this. Like, obviously their money's in your business. Like what's your suggestion? Or like, do you think this is a good way forward versus just, I mean, if you have, and I've been on the other side of this, when you're in business with someone who they just care about the results, well, that's not a great time to be their partner when things aren't going well. Right. So that's great advice.
And dude, I think another thing is we're very open. We're very open about what our goals were, and our goals were not to sell the company. We're not planning on selling the company. We want to climb to the top of the mountain over the next 10 to 15 years, maybe go on a IPO or something like that to build it to that level. But we want to stand next to Hershey's and Mars and, Mondelez and all these great Kellogg's, all these great companies. We actually want to put our flag next to them. And, the only way to do that is to go the full way. And, there's amazing companies, like RX Bar, like Perfect Bar, like, Hugh Kitchen, all these great companies that have built their businesses. Yes, they've sold their company and still are operating very well. But for us, we want to kind of test the waters of trying to pass that, in the sense of trying to keep climbing if we can. Yeah. And we made that clear with our investors, and it's not the typical route that all of them necessarily want.
Yeah.
But it's open.
So that's interesting. So what I would say, especially in the food and beverage space, a lot of brands have this mentality of, if you grow to the point where you're able to sell, you're at this inflection point where you can either, you can make out well, obviously. And then two, if you don't, you might get swallowed up by bigger companies who can try to innovate and copy you. What was your guys' thought process? Because I think it's really interesting. You don't talk to a lot of people who want to build a company next to the big boys. And so thinking you guys could do this for a long period of time, like I would love to know what went through you guys' conversations to get to that point.
So to be honest with you, personally, when we first started in August 2018, I was like, yo, let's build this and let's sell it. Like I was inspired by a lot of our peers in the industry, like, there's some great businesses out there. And that was my only thing on my mind. When is this going to happen? When's this going to do it? When's this? And it was kind of like, it was on all of our minds, but my partner, Nick, was really like enjoying the process. Like, I know it sounds so cheesy, but enjoying everything that's happening. Yeah. And he kept on kind of telling us like, yeah, like, I think we have a chance. Like, I think if we could continue to build this business, with the community that we're building and the products and the manufacturing, which is one of the assets that you could, like you said before, is you could just keep growing, right? We could potentially stand next to those big guys as a chocolate business, but a modern day version of it. So like more of, Hershey's products are, don't get me wrong, I loved eating them as kids, but they were good when I was 7 years old, 8 years old. And the modern day customer is searching for different style products. They're searching for better for you stuff and different ways of communication. So different brand type of, experiences, customer relation, like different way of how they interact with customers. And at that level already, it's very hard for them to figure that out, because it's not easy to cross the edge or, cross the red line, or, be a little bit, uncensored, which is real life. Right. And we all start to feel this thing where we're like, yo, we actually have a potential chance, and we're still small. Don't get me wrong. We're going to hit we're aiming for 10 million in revenue this year, but at the end of the day,
good for you guys.
That's what that 10 to 12 is what we're going for this year. But we're like, if we can continue the growth that we have, and we can continue to building it authentically, and we're just enjoying it, like having a really good time, a lot of appetite for, institutions to get behind us. Like we're talking about the big banks to get behind us, to help us get to that level, and liquidity events for anyone that wants to be part of this event, that wants to get out. They can get out on IPO. They can get out on a public, on the public markets whenever they want. And we don't have that pressure of when are you selling. So we start to really enjoy this journey. And we're like, we start to feel it finally that, we might have a chance. There's an opening up there. And how come no one's done it? And we just want to see, obviously, when we get to the big level of how, some of these amazing companies have gotten to and then got acquired, obviously I can't tell you how I'm going to feel at that point. But I could tell you that the goal in our mind and what's in our heart is to get to that top level and kind of become that modern day chocolate company, functional chocolate company.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I think the one thing maybe, and, every company is a little bit different, but once you sell and you become part of a bigger organization, things change too. Like I would say like, at RX, for example, the no BS thing, that's like something that we really drove home. You guys have your own, branding I love it. It's very raw. It's very real. Once you're a part of a huge, organization, sometimes that can't, you have to be kind of like with mom and dad a little bit more. So I think that's really interesting for you guys. I mean, it sounds like you have a ton of runway and you have big aspirations. Do you think with scaling sales, scaling across the country with your warehousing and manufacturing, which personally, to me, that's like the biggest like light bulb since we started talking, like that's a very, very interesting differentiator for you guys. Do you think the brand voice is also something that's scalable and it's something that like really resonates with your guys's, consumer?
Yeah. So our goal from day one was to kind of get the consumer to feel like they're buying from us, like not from a chocolate company, but from, for example, Nick, Leslie, and I, or in our MidDay Squares team. It's like, oh yeah, I know those guys. I know those people. They're the crazy, fun, whack people. I'm buying that product. And so kind of making it feel like we're their neighbors or their family members. We kind of wanted that. And we realized that might be very hard to scale. But as we started to invest and as we raised money, a good portion of the money was dedicated to our storytelling, and dedicated to teams to build and scale that at the highest level possible. So for us, like bringing on like a producer from Spike Television, for example, like just in that in a food space is like whack. When you tell someone that, they're like, why would you, But for us, it's important that we start arcing our storytelling. And so we keep getting the consumer to feel like we're more of a Nike rather than a General Mills, or rather than a Saputo, one of those, which are great companies, don't get me wrong, but we want them to feel Nike when they're buying our product. And, functional chocolate bars are our first product line, but, we're going to go into everything under the sun of chocolate. And that's why there's so much room in there for growth and just opportunity. And I think that if we can keep the brand storytelling to be about building the business and kind of the real aspect of what it takes to be transparent and authentic in real life, I think the connection between the consumer can keep growing at that high level and that rapid army community building. And that's what we believe we could do by building out the right storytelling capabilities, getting it out there on the right platforms. I think we could build it over the next 10 to 15 years to be that level of brand, the level that the manufacturing is growing at the same time as the brand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. I think you definitely can. So you guys, I think that's a great like leeway into another point is that I think chocolate in general. I mean, I noticed this when I came to RX. It was I thought all chocolate was bad, to be honest. I thought it was like unhealthy for you, packed with sugar. Could you maybe explain to everyone just like the actual true cacao and chocolate, like health benefits of that? And then to me, I think it's really cool. That was gonna be a question is like innovation for you guys. I mean, if you guys are gonna try to flip chocolate on its head and take on, the big chocolate brands, would love to hear a little more about that too.
Yeah, dude. So, chocolate, people don't realize that chocolate's growing so fast. It's an indulgent, right? People love chocolate, but it's a permissible indulgent a lot of the time if it's made with cocoa butter, not palm kernel oil and added sugars. We make our hot chocolate like everything's done in-house here. So it's our own, like no one has the same chocolate as MidDay Squares because again, when we were trying to build these machines, the biggest chocolate machine makers in the world that's, do for Nestle, do for all these big companies, they were like, you guys are making it so different. Like, why are you guys doing that? And for us, it was the taste and the texture that we really cared about, and it was different. So when you try our bars, you'll see the bite is that crack, but
Mm-hmm.
you also taste it. It just melts in the mouth. It's really, it's a science. Chocolate's a science. Basically, how you temper it, how you keep it the way it is. It's a whole process. And my sister's mastered that, even though she had no experience in the past with chocolate.
That's awesome.
That it means you can go learn it, you can figure it out. But the chocolate industry is growing tremendously. And I think people don't realize that chocolate, there's so many antioxidants, there's natural energy from it, there's brain fuel, there's all this stuff that people don't realize how good chocolate is for you, heart health. And for us, if we can continue to play on the chocolate game, but then add the functionality through superfoods, like, things like, we use hemp, we use all kinds of plant-based stuff. We use yacon syrup, which is a really natural, really cool sweetener that's, really high in fibers. And, proper fats coming from like cocoa butter and not palm kernel oil. Again, it's a lot more expensive to do it. But
Sure.
again, this is the way that our modern day customer wants. That's how they want their chocolate. And we're finding that more people, as they grow, are starting to appreciate the taste of dark chocolate. So real chocolate, not the milk chocolate that's out there. And you even see a trend changing in the big guys, where I just saw a bunch of, Kit Kat just had a vegan bar, all these things. So yeah, Reese's Pieces they're creating a vegan organic, I don't know, this whole organic game.
They're
So for
starting to
us,
add
it's
healthy,
like,
better for you stuff, probably, right? Yeah.
exactly. But it's not as authentic for them than it is for a company that started that way, right?
Yes.
And so for our innovations, like, we want to tap into nostalgia for the 90s babies and stuff like that. What did we have as kids that were, unhealthier snacks that we could kind of, not Me Too product them, but innovate them to remind our customers kind of what they are. So like, let's say, for our peanut butter flavor right now, it reminds you of a Reese's, but it's not like it at all in terms of any type of image of it or the textures or the way it's built. It's completely different. A lot of bars they just copy and they Me Too the product,
Yeah.
and they do the exact same thing. For us, it's like, we wanted a distinct difference, but a reminder. So when you explain our product, it's like, oh yeah, it tastes like a healthy Reese. And that's really where the innovation's going in our game. And our R&D
Love
team's
that.
really good. Everything's, our R&D team comes for, we're investing a lot in the food science aspect,
Okay.
just to play with different things, play with new types of, types of products and products, what they do for you, how do they benefit the person's life, like what can we play with?
Yeah. Oh wow, that's wild. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you said that a little while ago, I was like, oh, there's so many chocolate-based things I love that I'm assuming you guys have up your sleeve that you're going to start working on. So that's very exciting. So 2018, you do a little over 700,000. 2021, you're hoping to do 10 to 12 million. Huge jump. Let's talk a little bit about distribution. Like, where are you guys? Obviously, you're based out of Canada. I'm here in the US, but be curious to know just like where you guys currently are. I'm assuming e-commerce is probably huge for you guys. Just a little bit of a background where people can know where to find you guys.
Yeah, so we do 40%, 35 to 40% on D2C, so online on our website.
Wow. Yeah.
A bit on Amazon. We're growing now on Amazon, but the bulk of our business, 60%, is in the natural space in Canada. And again, we're refrigerated products, so it makes it a lot harder for distribution, just because in Canada alone, the refrigerated snacking set is not built out. We had to pioneer that set. Kind of like how Perfect Bar did that over the last 13 years in the United States. We had to do that here, and it was hard, man. We had to we had to like convince buyers to be like, yo, it makes sense to have a refrigerated, snacking set. And they would put us next to the cottage cheese. And I'm like, yo, doesn't make sense there. It's an impulse product. It's a
Yeah.
discovery, convenience. Why are you putting us next to eggs and cottage cheese?
Yeah,
So
that's so funny.
that was hard, man. And we're still working on that every single day here in Canada. So we're in about 1,100 stores here, 1,150 in Canada. In the
Awesome.
US, we're starting in the US now. Next month, I think we start to open up, anywhere from 200 to 300 stores in the natural independent space. So like
Exciting.
we're really, yeah. And we're trying to get an anchor partner like a Whole Foods or like a Sprouts to take on the product. And again, we're not rushed to grow in the US. The goal is to, really build out, Southern California, Texas, those two regions really much on the independent natural route. And then, slowly ease our way into the other markets. But the goal is really to make those two markets, which are pretty big, to feel like this is where MidDay Squares is. They're all over the place here. They're the brand here, and that's going to take time and resources. But so our distribution is going to stay in the natural space over the next year and a half over the US, and then hopefully go into like those bigger conventional spaces,
Right.
over the next 2 to 3 years.
Got it. Okay. So you guys are really going to hone in on California, Texas, and not really like the Chicago, East Coast locations at first.
I think after about 8 months to 12 months, we're going to start tapping Northeast. And then, Chicago is a market that we're interested in a lot. Again, it's just from a resource standpoint, especially being a Canadian company, getting our ground teams ready in the US and just the right hires and the right building, eventually our business is going to be I believe 85 to 90% in the US. Not to say that we don't want Canadians to keep, growing. Obviously, it's our backyard and we love it, but it's just smaller in terms of, the consumer base and just, I think it's 10 times smaller. So, and the cool thing is in the US, what I'm excited about is the set of the refrigerated snacking is already built out by some great brands like Perfect Bar, Hail Mary, Honey Mama, some great brands that we'd love to sit next to.
Right.
We're different than them. We're all different. So it's a great added value for the consumer.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. I know. I was gonna say that sounds exactly what we deal with. Like Canada's about 10% of our US business is kind of what we always kind of go off of. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys just have like an incredible room for growth. You've obviously hit on innovation. Do you want to give anyone a tease of like what's like some of the next closest things? You don't have to by any stretch, but what can people get excited about after chocolate bars?
So the chocolate will always be the same. They're playing with all kinds of stuff. Like I just saw the food science team's drawer full of products. They're not sure exactly they're not sure exactly what they're hounding down on. First of all, we got to do about 6 bars, 6 SKUs in terms of the first product line. So right now we have 3. Our 4th one's going to be out in June, but then we want to do about 6 and then we're going to get out of the space. And, for us, we want to own the afternoon. So we want to own the chocolate craving for the afternoon. That's our goal. And whatever innovation takes us up, I don't have an answer for that yet. As soon as we do, I will send you it your way, even maybe for some sampling. But the excitement is, and the whole MO here at our business is real chocolate, plant-based, and real food ingredients is where we're going. And whatever we can make with that formula, we're gonna go make.
Love that. Yeah, when you guys come back on the US, we'll have to do another round on the podcast and pump it out to everybody to get them to go try it.
100%.
Love that. One thing I wanted to ask was, it sounds like obviously e-commerce is big for you guys. That's kind of like my bread and butter and what I've really honed in on in my career. How has e-commerce for you guys shifted since COVID started? I thought you'd be interesting to ask about COVID because I mean, obviously the bar category took a really big hit, but at the same time, a lot of indulgent things have seen lots of growth because people are at home and maybe less worried about some of that. So you guys are like the perfect combination of both. I was really curious to see like how COVID and e-commerce, it seems like brands, and I'm kind of speaking ahead, but a lot of brands like you guys who really have been crushing it on e-commerce leading up to COVID. It's been interesting to hear like the stories that have gone on over the last year with what's happened.
Yeah. You're 100% right. So the bar space was on fire previous to COVID. Like, I remember, it was on a tear. Everyone was eating bars. Everyone was on the go. Everyone was going to the gym, going to work, going to this, going to that. And bars was the most convenient product to have that gave you what you needed and, you could enjoy. And, we loved that, offices, everything, that whole 9 yards. And then when March came, I remember looking at our sales, and we looked at the three of us looked at each other and we're like, holy fuck. We just dropped 70% in sales out of retail sales. And we're like, what the hell? And we had a decent e-com business before. I would say it was like anywhere from 18 to 20% of our business. So it was strong. It just wasn't like, it was doing good, but we're like, we ain't going to last on 18 to 20% of our business. We have rent, we have a factory, we have machines getting paid off. We have all this that we have 34, sorry, at the time we had 24 people, I think, on payroll full time. And we're like, holy shit, like this is dangerous. And we went home that night and we were depressed. And we actually thought that this was a moment that we might have to actually finally potentially have to throw in the towel. And, it was a lot of uncertainty, and retailers were, shorting their hours. We had a lot of business in gyms and food service, and that was completely shut.
That's kind of what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah. We were getting smoked there. And then we came back the next day and we said, okay, we need a game plan. What are we doing? So we just shifted basically 80% of our resources from retail and shoved them into hiring D2C. So basically Nick's background, my partner, came from the software space before, and he looked at everything with data, and he loved data. And for him, he was like, hey, this is my specialty. I'm going to get out of the ops and the financing and all that stuff of the business, and I'm going to go move into this department, hire out the teams we need. So who do we need? We need an ad buyer. We need a person that's expert at this. We need that. We need more creators. And we just went full throttle. We hired, I think, over the the span from March till about November, we hired about 12 or 14 people.
Wow.
And we went full guns blazing on D2C, on brand building and storytelling, and then just selling the shit out of the product online, and less focus on retail. We said, okay, well, let it take its hit wherever it's going to go. And it dropped at first like this, like straight drop. And then retail started coming back because, again, you said indulgent. We're on the chocolate side, right? So dark chocolate. So we still had the boost from that come in, and D2C ended up going to 35-40% of our business over this time. And for now, it might even hit 45 in the next 2 months. But for us, at the end of the day, we know the long play is also, it's just having very strong omni-channel businesses, like retail and online. We want it to be a 60-40, 65-35. But again, we got hit really hard at the beginning, but then things started to change where indulgent became a thing instead of cooking and stuff, believe it or not. And our peers in the bar space were like, this is affecting us dramatically. And I'm like, I get it, because at the end of the day, convenience and grab and go got completely shattered, just their routine of life.
I mean, just like that whole use case is so gone. Like, you hit it on the head. I mean, for even like at RX, anyone that was like in that category, the whole use case of, I used to get up, work out, rush to the train, get on the train, go to work. It was just like you just go in between different physical locations, and now you're just at home. So it's like you can just make food. You don't have to eat a bar. Very interesting. No, it's wild. I mean, I think for you guys, I mean, Amazon's interesting too, because Amazon's probably, is it a little tough? I mean, how are you guys handling? I'm assuming you're doing like drop shipping because you can't do FBA with like the refrigerated.
So we're doing everything in house here. So it's shipping from here. We ship to the customer. It's, it started off as like $5,000 a month in sales, and our US one's growing, but our Canada one's really growing. So it started off as that. And then now we're aiming for like anywhere, we want to hit about 50 to 60 in that, just on 50 to 60, over the next coming months. And we're close to it, just on Amazon per month.
Love it. That's
but
awesome,
but our website's way stronger. And we just amped up the digital game. We literally put imagine volume and you just turned it up. But before turning it up, we built the foundation there. So we said, what do we need? We need great content. We need to build funnel systems where we have people go into the ecosystem of MidDay Squares. And we're not so much selling the product, but we're bringing them into the story.
Love
and
that.
Again, during this time, like you said, people, could make stuff at home, have a prep a little snack or this, that. Right. But again, people still like chocolate on a day-to-day basis because, again, it puts a smile on your face.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where we just tripled down on it. And ended up when we hit July that year, 2020, we started jumping. Our sales started jumping a lot. Even in retail, they started to go up, but we started hitting our biggest months in overall sales. And It was great. We're like, holy shit, this is working. Now we're trying to figure out the balance of
Mm-hmm.
how do we rebuild the retail game?
Right.
Because again, we're not a priority right now. The convenient grab and go section is not a priority in the store because they know the routine is still not there yet. It's still not back. No, people aren't at their offices. We are because we're a factory, but most people still aren't at their offices. So think about the grab and go. It's like you're not going to go run. You're not on the go. So why would you grab bars? Think about it.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's going to be interesting to see how long it takes. I was just talking to my wife about this earlier today. I was like, we're starting to know people who are getting the vaccine, and it's like, it's weird. It's like, once you get enough people getting that, are people going to be back in the office sooner than later? Like, I know originally everyone thought this summer was going to be the thing, and now I'm like, well, we're almost to the end of February. I don't know if this summer is, I personally don't think this year is realistic for most people. Like, for me, it's funny. You maybe drive to a warehouse, like, I'm on a big train that goes downtown and it's got, I don't know, hundreds of people on it. And like, I can't imagine being packed into a train with all these people to get, it seems like it's been so long. So it'll be wild to see how long it takes to kind of get back to what was.
Dude, I was just speaking to my girlfriend about this yesterday night, actually. I was like, I'm worried about the post-COVID. So at what point are people, here in Canada, the regulations are very strict. So like, we have lockdowns, we have curfews, we have all these things actually.
Oh, do you have curfews still too?
Yeah. We have curfews at 8:00 every night. So I just came from Texas. You could just imagine Texas was wide open. And then I
Wild
came
West.
here. So wild West. And I just said, I worry, obviously I hope everyone stays safe and sound. That's my, our team is our priority, our family, friends, everything like that. But I worry about what happens after, when everyone's when the vaccinations become a mass and things like that. It's my worry is the mental health aspect. And are we going to be scared of each other? And if so, that's going to affect office life. That's going to affect, gyms, things like that, which directly, correlate to RX and MidDay squares in terms of growth. Right. So I think what we said, 2021 meeting, we said, let's write off the year in terms of retail. Let's not put that, let's obviously put our attention to it and keep it, maintaining and growing a little bit, but not jump. There's no reason to jump the resources in there, because 2021, I believe, in my personal opinion, is a write-off in that sense, because I think we're still far away from offices, people going back to their routine. And maybe like October, November, I think we can. And then 2022 would be the year to blow up retail again, to really pump it back out, because it will be like the roaring 20s when people mentally get back to being okay with each other and safe. And, you feel like, you can go do things again. But we're from that, and that scares me. It scares my peers in the space that are with us in this space. And I always talk to other, teams in a category, and it's a bit scary.
Yeah, it is, right? I mean, it's, it was weird in Chicago, for example, like the St. Patty's Day parade is like, that whole thing in Chicago is crazy. It's like probably the one thing all year long that most people know Chicago for. And for them to cancel it again, obviously, it's 2 years in a row without having it. It's just so weird to think, like, in the history of a lot of, just the world, like how many things are getting skipped and missed. And I agree. Now it's weird. If you're like, even if you're somewhere with a few people, it just feels strange. I know we went to a restaurant the other night. Restaurants are like kind of open-ish. It's very gray. A lot of restaurants, like if they were closed right now, they just wouldn't make it through the winter, which I'm sure you guys are in a similar boat.
Yeah.
And we were at one, and me and my wife, actually, we got COVID at the beginning of the year. So we like have a little bit of the antibodies we're hoping right now. I don't know for sure how that all works, but it was weird being back in a restaurant. Even we were like, oh, it's so strange being like, there's so many people in here without masks on. Like, is this okay? It is going to be weird, man. It's going to be weird to see like us all being back to what we were before, and, having these use cases that we were always so used to.
And I hope it does go back, man. And I really do. And I think once it does, things are going to be fire for categories like a grab and go again, because better for you is going to be a priority. And I think, listen, online's great. Don't get me wrong. Online's great, but I still think there's something to retail on, in store.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to say. And then I think that the conventional grocery stores are starting to move into this natural space a lot more, which is really exciting actually, because, you're seeing the biggest retailers, the biggest box typical retailers that are starting to carry products that are like, well, they have RX bar, I've seen it there, but, other products that are, smaller brands that are making headways in the better for you space. And it's exciting to see that.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think the health and wellness space leading up to COVID, if you were in it, you knew that people are tending to move towards it. From my opinion, a lot of people that were outside of that didn't get it. They were like, I don't know, maybe, I mean, it's like, why would I pay that much money for a bar? Blah, blah, blah. Now with COVID, I feel like everyone is like, I mean, whether it's eating healthier, taking your vitamins, taking minerals, making sure you're exercising, drinking less, like everyone is so much more focused on it that I agree with you. It's going to be like the roaring 20s, I think, when we come out, of just like brands that are in this space are just going to see a rocket ship of growth. And I think
And
it's
if
going
you're
to be,
able to hold out,
no,
if
go
you're
for
able
it.
to hold out,
Yeah.
no, dude, if you're able to hold out, then it's going to be that rocket ship.
Well, it's gonna be interesting too. I mean, you guys seem like you guys are doing the right things. In my mind, the people who are gonna win are, I like that concept of like kind of writing off retail for 2021, doing the right things to continue to grow, but not like hone in on it. But like, how can you do the right things to be ready on the starting blocks for 2022? I think the brands that are thinking like that are going to be the ones that are going to have huge 22s, 23s, 24s and beyond. People are, it's funny because what happens, I've noticed from talking to a lot of people, there were a lot of brands who weren't ready for the switch to ecom. So then they spent 6, 7 months trying to like develop ecom. It's probably helping now, but a lot of them are like behind. They're like, they missed out on this crazy boom if they would have been ready. And I feel like they're gonna have their eye off the ball when it goes to getting back to retail. Like they're kind of just, there's a lot of brands I'm noticing that are just kind of like 6 months behind. They're not thinking ahead. They are, but they're not. You know what I mean? It's like in the execution, it's not there.
And that's what worries me about the space is like, there are some brands like, we were prepared not for a pandemic, obviously, but we were prepared to, our e-com was set up, how we were shipping was set up. All we had to do is just scale it a little bit more. So hire a little bit more this, hire a little that. But we said, if this isn't going to work, and this is what I think a lot of entrepreneurs and people in the space, working need to realize, that we said, fuck it, we're going guns blazing. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, we fail and we close the business. Like that
Right.
all-in mentality allowed us to grow during this time, because we said, we know the risk. There's a risk. Definitely, if you're spending all this money, we're still burning a ton of money, but we're growing. At least we're chasing a lot of growth, which is great. But we went that full in. It's like we went on that treadmill at 12.5 speed, but we didn't get off. We just kept going. And then, we were okay knowing that, God forbid, this could fail at any point, because things were changing in the space, like, where the product was, like, just like where the consumer was going in the stores for things. They had a list of products they were going, their frequency levels were less. They were scared of things in the store. They wouldn't ask for help. Like, there's so many things that made a difference at the retail game, but on the e-com game, if you didn't have that ready, you're missing out, because at the end of the day, people were like, oh, I'm on my phone. They're at home all day. They're on their computers. They're doing nothing. Let's just shop.
Yeah. Right. And I think people are just now, I mean, I've been in e-commerce for a long time. People are just now realizing too, with the explosion of social media over the last few years, how you can like walk into a coffee shop, see a product on the shelf, walk out, you're on Instagram, walking down the street with your coffee, and you're like, oh shit, there's an ad that you see it. It's like in the back of your head. You might click on it, you might not. Then you're at the office and you get on Amazon and you see it there. And then like, it's just like, you gotta be everywhere. Like being everywhere is so key. Yeah.
Everywhere, man. And people don't realize it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, it sounds like you guys are doing all that stuff. I mean, good for you guys. I think one thing I wanted to ask too was, I mean, you guys have a very cool story, very unique background. Obviously, the people listening to this will understand that now. How do you, like, when you think back over, I mean, it's only been a couple of years, which is crazy probably for you guys. I know even at RX when I joined, like, it feels like dog years when you're like 1 year feels like 7. You know what I mean? Especially when you're trying to build something. What would be like, and there's probably been tons, but what is like one hurdle that you guys have faced that you would, that you guys got over and you think back, like that could have been kind of the linchpin in you guys going under? If it was COVID, that's fine. But like, what's a good example for listeners who want to build something, just on like something crazy you guys had to overcome early on?
So I'll give you two stories. One, which was really sad, but it happened, and and we like to be transparent about it. And then the second one, I'll tell you more of that linchpin.
Okay.
I think my earphones died, but that's okay.
Oh, you're good. I can still hear you.
Yeah. So the first story is at the beginning of, it's very sad. And the beginning of as things were flying high in terms of, business in the first year, we're a very family culture at our business.
Okay.
Like if you come to Montreal, you'll see that like everyone's so close here. Like there's no red lines. It's all blurred. Everyone's just family. And we like that. Things, we've learned how to adapt to that in terms of problems, communication, stuff like that.
Sure.
We ended up doing our first staff retreat ever. And it was, up north where there's a lake and stuff like that. And, we went up for a day, and we were going to have the team, just hang out. We were like all excited. Like, it's been a great year. We're on fire. We're about to raise money, to grow even more. And we went on a staff retreat, and someone on our team, Stanley, rest in peace, he ended up drowning, tragic accident, out of pure fluke. Yeah, dude, pure fluke. And that shocked everyone. That obviously it's very tragic, and it's mentally shocking for anyone to go through, and it's very sad. But that was a decision between the three of us. We were like, I don't know if we want to continue this, not because we didn't believe in it, or not because something, it wasn't negligible at all. It was literally fluke, fluke. And, we were just like, how can we rebuild the team to be strong and get through something so difficult like this? And that really, it was tough, man. And we worked, we gave our team a month off, and they ended up showing up on that Monday. I remember it happened on a Saturday. They showed up on that Monday afternoon to come produce, because even though retailers said, I'm so sorry to hear about this, blah, 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 which they were truly genuine about, they still have a business to run, and their customers still want products there on the shelf. So if you could fulfill it, great. If you can't, there'll be obviously consequences. So they ended up just showing up. The team showed up without being told to, because they didn't have to. We were going to work with therapy, group sessions, stuff like that. And I've never seen something come together and bond that we went through. And yeah, that was just a lesson for all of us, that anything can happen in life with the snap of a finger.
Sure.
We actually got stronger as a team, and anyone that goes through that kind of, as a business, I think, at that stage, that level of how big we were as a team, we weren't that big. Would probably close the business, but we had resilience, and we did it for Stan. And Stan, we have he's a legend. And at the end of the day, like I said, things happen, and it was hard. It was definitely really, really hard. And we share that story because, again, it's important for people to know things, because at the end of the day, there's tough times, and that was a hard time. And then also another linchpin was, we at one point, Leslie thought that this manufacturing wasn't gonna be able to happen, and we weren't gonna be able to make the bars, because she went to go test machines after machines after machines for 4 months straight. And they were all telling her, we can't do your chocolate. We just can't, the machines can't do it. And she was sending, think about it, every time she'd go, she'd send batches of product, because raw materials, $50,000 worth of stuff sometimes. And it would just not work. She'd come home, not work, go again. And she said to us, she's like, she didn't tell us this, but she felt that this might not work. And then she figured it all out. But that moment was like, if that can't scale, then we're finished. The business is done. So again, trusting your partners is the lesson. We put trust into her to figure it out, and she gave us her trust that she's going to make it happen. And she did. And I think it goes to anything that happens, is trust is a really big, trust and accountability is a really big thing that, your team needs, and any partnerships or co-working relationships should have.
Yeah, no, both great stories, great advice. It's crazy. You sometimes when I hear those stories, you got to wonder how many good ideas. First of all, what do they say? Who knows? But most good ideas stop there at the idea. To even get to the point where she was at, to be in that position where you're sending physical raw materials to get it produced, you got to wonder how many brands fold in the towel when they can't figure it out, that never make it to life. So, it goes to show how much work you guys have put in, the struggles you've overcome. And, obviously I'm sure there'll be more in the future, but you always remember those tough times, and how close you guys get together. Right. That's kind of, I think, the key to building a business.
You need grit. A lot of people don't have grit, or resilience. And I think that's what's missing in our generations coming, is they're all creative, great ideas, great things. But as soon as something hard comes, as soon as something tough comes, there's a lot of turning away, or stopping instead of trying to trailblaze through. And that's something that, I think generation that was now that they're 50 to 60 to 70 years old, they were tough.
Yeah.
They had grit, cool grit. And I think we just need to figure a way to get that back, that type of grit back, for our generations to come and businesses to start, because entrepreneurship is really cool. And you're a loser till you've made it, technically,
Yeah, right.
You gotta be able to take that You got to be able to take that. You eat dog. I eat dog shit every day and one day it will turn into souffle, hopefully. But it is what it is. And I chose a choice. All chose to do this journey. It was our choice.
Right.
But there's moments like that are up to here, and then there's moments here. You got to figure out how to keep those things calibrated.
Got it. Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Obviously I can see behind you, you read. So these are like the last few that I always ask founders. I love to hear just what you're up to. You can use book. I always say if you're not a reader, obviously you are, you can say podcast or something else, source of knowledge. What is like the most gifted or most shared book, source of knowledge that you'd suggest to the listeners?
2 books. So I've just finished Green Lights today, this morning.
Okay.
Kane, I love that guy. Perspective on everything. Nothing. It's not really business related. It's more his life perspective, but how he sees things is just, it's incredible. And how you could start to look at things in your own life. So that's one thing. Number 2, it's actually behind me up there. You can see it in the corner, the red one.
Yeah.
It's called Good Company.
Okay.
The co-founder of Home Depot. He is, what an entrepreneur that guy is, man. Like, he just gets how, the real lesson from the story is core values are extremely important, to stay true to your core values. And he did that through all his businesses. And those core values helped him thrive at Home Depot, thrive at the Atlanta Falcons, thrive with Mercedes-Benz Stadium. All the businesses he's done have been a big hit because of his core values.
Got it. Love that. That's a great one. I have not heard of that one. I'll check that out. I'll add it to this. So obviously, you're a co-founder of a brand that is growing like weeds, and you guys have tons of stuff going on. What tools do you use to track your goals, track like just what you need to get done this month, this week, and then like shit you're getting done today? Some people it's pen and paper, some people it's apps. Like, what is your way of getting shit done?
So we have a to-do thing built on Basecamp. Basecamp's a really good platform internally that we use. And then also we have a software engineer named Madison. She's out in Texas, Corporate Christie, I think, Texas. She's amazing. She creates systems for us. She builds the systems with my partner, Nick. They work on these crazy systems that are customized for all our things. We use Airtable as one of the things that help us do it, but they build everything customized for how we operate the business, from the lean manufacturing to the sourcing to all that, to the stuff with customer experience, catching, how we do qualitative, analysis, and even quantitative. And I think every company should invest in a software engineer that understands how to build those kinds of systems, because they save you so much time down the line, and just you start to put everything that on these things, so you're never blind. You're never blind.
Got it. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. So you guys have, that sounds like you're very technologically savvy. Makes sense with your brother-in-law. So you guys are definitely on that route. That's awesome. The last question, and the most important, how can people get involved with MidDay Squares? How can they follow you, Jake? And then a dual question, since you guys are in Canada, we do have listeners in Canada. So for those folks, what's the best place to find you guys? And in the US, what's the best place to find you guys today?
Yeah, cool. So you can find us on for social media purposes on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at MidDay Squares, one word. For my personal, Jake Karls, check me out. I like to be a little crazy and whack. I'm all about being unapologetically myself.
Love it.
And then for Canadians, go on our website, middaysquares.com, and you'll find the store locators, or you could buy it off the website. It's free shipping. And then for Americans, again, you could get it off our website, or if you're in Cali, we do sell at Erewhon Market
nice.
out there in the refrigerator. But over the next, like I said, 6 to 8 months, you'll see in about 200 to 300 stores, again, in the natural space. And we live next to Perfect Bars. So
love it.
Yeah, check out our podcast, like you mentioned before.
Yeah, definitely.
I think fireside chats that are just about like us three, shooting a shit about what's actually going on in our business.
No, I was gonna say, I was gonna plug that for you guys. Being obviously a podcast host myself, fucking love your guys' podcast. It's so cool, very different. I think more brands should do that. I've been trying to push the brands I'm involved with to start podcasts, and you guys produce a really high quality one too. So I wanted to give you guys props on that. Sounds great. You got great intros. The whole thing is fantastic. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate it. So yeah, and I appreciate you having me on, man. I had a great time. We had a great conversation.
Jake, appreciate it so much. It was great to get to know you a little bit. Good luck with everything with MidDay Squares, and I'll add all this stuff to the show notes so everyone can check you guys out and try the products. And yeah, man, it was great to get to know you. I'm glad that we made the time work, and I appreciate it.
I'm pumped, babe. Let's go.
Awesome, man. Well, stay warm up there, okay?
Yeah, I need to. You too.
All
Stay
right, you have
safe.